go ahead and have Dan come back up and we haven't been able to digest all those numbers you gave us the last time, Dan, so.
Hopefully the food went down easier.
And Dan brought Dan.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah.
This is my brother Dan and my other brother Dan.
Yeah, quick and easy. Yeah. Yep.
Somewhere under here, there's a mouse.
Okay, Pat?
Okay, yep, we're up to, I think so, hold on. Yes, whew, no, hold on,
Yep.
yeah, wrong file, sorry. Okay. Okay, good to go.
All right, welcome back. We are on the County Roads Division. As you can see in the summary, our capital expenditures are down this year with some increases, salaries and benefits that I don't really have any control over, and operating costs are generally the same. I would even say, given the purchasing price index and inflation, we're 1.8 increase in operating costs really is a little bit less. It is a little bit of a reduction in terms of what we're asking for. It's just everything seems to cost more money right now. But specifically for the budget, some of our highlights, we are requesting reclassification, promotion of 2 staff from MEO 1s to MEO 2s. One, I believe, is currently qualified, while the second one we expect by mid-year will have met all the qualifications to become an MEO 2. So we'd like to budget for 2 promotions.
Do we have a dollar figure, Dan?
We do, and we'll talk about it more when we do the closed session, just because it's current individuals.
And we are requesting an increase to our road patching materials. And we got rid of joint.
Because of the crack sealing, yeah, we got rid of that.
Yeah, so we've reshaped the budget a little bit. There's a couple different items that all kind of play into each other with the road patching and crack sealing and things like that. So we combined them into one item, which represents a big chunk of the $33,000 increase. But we're also seeing more need for road patching and joint repairs. Those are key construction items that allow us to squeeze a few extra years of life out of a given road. So I do believe that is well invested funding. We show a reduction in the winter road treatment. That's based on our projection for FY25. We're holding steady with the budget we had for 25, but we've had a pretty high volume of events this winter. So our actual budget, we had to move some money around this year, and to hold steady with what we had budgeted would be $16,000 less than what we spent this year. I note that for FY25, we did increase that sum. We wanted to buy more salt and get away from the calcium chloride we have been using. I think the increased salt in the mixture has paid dividends. We're seeing the roads we treat clear up better and stay clear longer. So that has been a success. In terms of capital items, there are a couple things that you can anticipate seeing every year. One being a new dump truck, the others being the surface treatment and the paving projects for a given year. This shows 2 dump trucks. That's because the FY25 dump truck has not yet arrived. We don't anticipate it to arrive until 26. And we're actually still waiting for the FY24 order. Those are timelines out of our hands. We're regularly checking in, but that's where we are with the purchase of those trucks. So we do expect FY24's order to be in within the next couple months. However, we don't expect FY25's. So we'd be rolling over about half of that figure you see on the screen, and then requesting a purchase of an additional one. For the surface treatment program, we receive just about $65,000 in state aid each year. And Daniel has worked up a list of roads that would be of highest priority for the surface treatment program. And then our annual paving program, we have identified 6 roads that are in need of paving. And again, the concept with paving versus surface treatment is we maintain what was there. So if it's a paved road, we keep it paved. If it's already a surface treated road, we keep it tar and chip. Any one of those, if there were a strong preference to go from paving to surface to tar and chip, it's technically feasible. But people who regularly drive those roads, especially a lot of the paved roads in the county, are in residential areas. They may object to converting to tar and chip. But I would say that the, per linear foot of road, it's about 1/5 of the cost to tar and chip it as opposed to pave it. Pavement lasts longer, it's an easier ride, but, we get a lot more done, mileage-wise with our tar and chip program than our paving program. We are also proposing to surface treat, the Public Works staging and storage lot. So I'm not coming to you guys asking for a new parking lot that I park in. This is the lot, if you're looking at our building immediately to the left, where all of the equipment, the dump trucks, the grader, all that is stored.
There's buses and stuff are parked there too, right?
DCT uses it, the school buses come in to refuel. So it's a very high-use lot. Currently, it's just stone and does require pretty routine maintenance to regrade out the stone that's there. Surface treating it would make a much more durable surface throughout that lot. And we have that at just under $68,000. We also propose Ohio and Virginia avenues. Within the next week, we'll have a letter going out to the residents taking their temperature on adoption of that road. Per previous discussions, those 2 roads, per previous discussions, we would not look to reconstruct the roadways to full county standards. We would be looking to fix the current condition by some patching and then coming in and tar and chipping the 2 roads. But in exchange for that, we would ask that the roads be dedicated to the county because they're both currently private roads. So that represents a $30,000 cost. And certainly, you know, if the residents were not interested in their road being adopted, the county could still come and do it. But our current approach is that if they're willing to dedicate their roads, we'd be willing to fix them up to the tune of $30,000. The final item you see is Lamson Forest Bridge. That is an 80-20 split with the state. The design has progressed this year. Frankly, not at the pace I had anticipated, largely because of the volume of other projects that have been going on with Public Works. But we have made strides in the design, and I expect that the construction of that would happen late this calendar year, if not next spring. So within FY '26. So as I mentioned, the dump truck, we are asking for, I believe it's $180,000 to be rolled over, or $186 to be rolled over from this year, as well as $190,000 for a new truck. And the final note is the Village at Kennedyville. We had budgeted in FY '25 $160,000 to do some improvements there. We have been holding that money because most of the improvements we had anticipated will either be required of a developer or what we do may need to be changed because of a specific developer. So we are proposing to carry that money to roll it over into FY '26 as almost a contingency. If we put that out to bid and we do not get favorable bids, we would still have the money in the budget to do some of the bare minimum things, clean up the pond, install the street lights, fix some drainage issues. So we would be carrying that money from FY '25 into '26. With all that said, I believe a roads list for the surface treatment was included. We would would be happy to answer any questions.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the help.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll move on to environmental operations. We got the biggest budget out of the way before lunch. The rest of these are relatively regularly occurring or routine items, for the most part. But, oh, and this would be a good time to mention too, for all Public Works divisions, I'm proposing an increase in the allotment they receive for uniforms, from $300 an employee to $325 an employee. Last year, we did something similar with the work boot program. We went from 1 to 150. We're asking for an extra $25 per employee. Things like shipping costs and the cost of having the county logo added have gone up, and I'm just hoping to offset that so they can get $300 of clothes and not worry about the impact of the shipping against that number.
Is that listed here, Dan, how many were?
Not separately. It's rolled up.
But yeah, that would be at $25 an employee increase. So specific to environmental operations, as you can see, there was some small capital. We have an increase in capital costs this year and some increase in operating costs. The operating costs increase, the biggest chunk of that deals with groundwater monitoring. We've used Chesapeake Labs for some time, and Earth Data for some time on the groundwater monitoring front. We're seeing a sharp increase in PFAS testing and the associated lab costs. This would be the same program we have this year, which is the recommended program by MDE. We've vetted out the testing procedures, the specific tests, the frequency, with MDE, and we meet their recommendations currently. But the costs significantly increased this year. We are proposing an increase for the yard waste grinding as well. That's based on actual expenditures. It would be, I believe, maintaining the same budget we had this year, but we spent less than anticipated this year. Yard waste is a bit of a guessing game. We don't know what year people are really gonna be bringing in tons of stuff or not, but in FY '24, we were very late to contract that service, so we had a very big pile to deal with. Because we had a big pile in '24, '25 wasn't as big as we anticipated, or wasn't as big as the previous year because of the time of year you do it. So we're anticipating that we fall somewhere in the middle from those 2 years in terms of volume. And that is something MDE used to fund that I believe in FY '25 was the first time they cut the funding for that. So we haven't heard that they'll bring it back, and we have budgeted accordingly. Our gas flare monitoring is going up a little bit. I shouldn't say a little bit. It's going up $6,000. We had been using a company called Aptum for that for a number of years. We recently found out that they may not be interested in continuing to serve us.
I'm sorry, what's that for?
This is the methane gas monitoring at Nicholson Landfill. This company, they worked us in as part of a handful of contracts in neighboring counties, and with those going out to RFP, they're not confident they can. So we have worked with MES to come up with an alternative program. They are strongly recommending more frequent monitoring, although it will be at a lower cost per event. So that results in $6,330 increased dollars there. Jumping down to the capital, there is a bulkhead, timber tie retaining wall at the Sharptown Drop-Off Center. And I believe there are some pictures further in. Yep, as you can see. I don't know the exact age. I'd say certainly has met its intended lifespan, but it's timber tie construction with steel vertical beams holding it in place. If you go to the drop-off center itself, the little building is right on top of it, and the containers sit right on the low side. That is one that has been in the 5-year plan for a while. It precedes my involvement with the county. And I went out there recently to take a look. It definitely, it's one of those things, I don't know when it's gonna fail. I don't want it to fail, period. But we're seeing a lot of rusting on the metal components as well as some significant bowing of that wall. So that project would be to actually to construct a new wall about 6 inches offset from the old one and backfill in between the two. And then we would need to do some expanded concrete pad for the containers, because if we move the wall out, the containers have to shift over accordingly. So that whole project comes to $90,000. We're also proposing the purchase of 2 mowers at a total of $26,100. And finally, the Nicholson groundwater treatment plant. As you know, we were able to work with MDE and change the testing location to the ultimate outfall of that system, as opposed to before the water gets in the pond. So the water gets treated, it flows into a pond, and then the pond releases it into the stream. We were checking it before it got into the pond. Now we're checking it after the pond, before the stream. Our violations have disappeared because of that. So yes, that's very good, because we're not actively accruing additional violations. But something is happening in the pond that we don't want to pretend magically the contaminants are going away. So we have worked with a consultant to develop a pilot testing program for a couple different filters in order to look at a future project of upgrading the plant at a much lower level than we had proposed last year, the $4.1 million project. But in order to find out exactly what type of screening and filtering would be needed in the plant to permanently eliminate the problem, we're proposing a total budget of $250,000. That would include the pilot testing program with a amount of money set aside for an engineering design contract for whatever upgrades we do propose. So to summarize that, we've gotten ourselves out of violation, but we know that there are improvements needed. And we're looking for the most effective and most efficient cost-wise way of doing that. The next step would be a pilot testing program, and then we've budgeted for that testing plus an engineering design contract.
And Dan, there was, when we were talking about that, when we were involved in that, there was one of those filters that we're using now that we were having to have it repaired every once in a while. It was leaking.
Yes.
Is that something that we can continue to fix, or is that something that
Yes.
you look at when you do this?
Absolutely, yes. The reason that
Because if I understand it right, those 2 filters that are in there are really not designed to take out iron to begin with.
right. They do happen to take out iron, but it's
That's not their design, and we have to put new element in it ever so often.
Yes.
Because it becomes so clogged up with that. So you're looking at putting something else additional in that system?
or replacement of the carbon filters, yes, with a different
And
system.
obviously, these carbon filters that are leaking, you'll take a look at them at the same time.
Yes, yeah, I believe in the FY25 budget, we have some money for change out of the carbon in the filters, and we're proceeding with that currently, as well as we have made some repair to the steel vessels that the carbon sits in, which had a lot of, were leaking. So, yes, we are continuously working to upgrade that plant. And that wraps up environmental operations.
At one time, there was some conversation about safety with the walkway there or something, or
Yes,
I think that was.
I think that's been taken care of.
yes, Mike Usselton and his team added a couple handrails and sturdied up the foundation there. That's at the very bottom where the water dumps into the stream, a little platform there. We fixed that up to make sure it would be safe. Okay, on the public landings front, here, next topic. topic. These are still significant amounts of money, but compared to some of the other ones, we've started to get down to the smaller ticket items, I'd say. There's no capital for public landings. We see slight increases to operating, but again, I think inflation has outpaced the 2.7% increase we're proposing. So we are making our best effort, department-wide, to do as much as we can with what we got. Let me see here. Our budget highlights are $700 for electric. Yep. We will skip over Bayside Landing for a moment and move on to building maintenance. And as you can see, again, a slight increase in operating, a 4.6% increase, and reduction in the overall capital asks for this year. We have a scheduled increase in our HVAC maintenance contract. We signed a 5-year contract. The rates were pre-programmed into that, so we're continuing into year 4 of that contract. When you add up all the buildings, electric costs have been rising, so electricity. So we're proposing $10,600 of additional funding towards that, as well as increases to the building repair and supply budgets. Again, the buildings keep getting older. We have HVAC minor repairs that maybe don't elevate to the level of full replacement occurring with a good frequency. And we've had to come to you guys, ask for contingency, I believe, a couple times on the HVAC front this year. So we're asking for an increase in our operating costs associating with repair of those units. As far as the capital for this division, we propose continuations of our 2 HVAC replacement programs for the courthouse and for this building. Because of the number of units and anticipated life of a given unit, we have been, this year in '25, replaced 3 in the courthouse and 2 in 400. We might have actually gone over that this year. Yeah, we actually needed to come back and replace more because of broken units this year. But as far as the budget goes, we're proposing continuing a program of 3 in the courthouse and 2 in 400 High Street. And the library roof remains in our budget. I was under the impression we were going to hear back about that grant around January, February. I spoke to some people at the library as of last week, and we don't have any definite answer on if that project will be funded or not. So we have continued the $130,000. We've rolled that from FY '25 to '26. We're proposing to keep that in the budget. But obviously, we will hold that money until we hear back about the grant and exactly what funding we'll receive.
Dan, if I remember correctly, a while back, you brought a schedule of HVAC units to be replaced
Yes.
in the county buildings.
Yes, sir.
And we had a conversation about, you had a schedule of like, let's do 5 this year, 3 next year, or whatever. And I think we made a decision that we didn't want to wait.
We cleared the deck, yeah.
So did we complete that, or is that part of this?
Everything we had previously brought for approval has been completed.
It's still in the process. There's some items that haven't been delivered yet, but they should be complete by the end of this
Right,
year.
and these are separate, these are in addition.
These are
In addition,
Yes.
yes, everything on this would be completely in addition. Like you see, the courthouse has 54 units, and this building has 42. So even in a best-case scenario, we're staying a couple years ahead of a 25 to 30-year service life of a unit. And obviously, we have prioritized which units we think are most likely to go or most, giving us the most trouble in a given year, and scoped this based around those units. So we are attempting to be proactive and do our best to predict where the issues will be and replace those before they become real issues. And finally, there is a request for one new mower.
Is that to replace one?
Yes, that would be a replacement for buildings. And then grounds maintenance would be the next topic. And actually, my real last topic. Again, I think the operating increases have been relatively consistent across each division, about maintaining with inflation or slightly less than anticipated inflation. Some of the increases we're proposing deal with purchasing tools, as well as janitorial supplies. As I mentioned here, for the grounds maintenance team, the increase in uniforms is one of the items that made the list, and electric costs. So the two big capital, I believe the only two capital requests for this division deal with a new front mount mower as well as a rotary boom attachment. The front mount, we had approved and we have purchased for FY25 a side mount mower, which is a lower cost. However, we do have a front mount that we expect will be out of commission soon. So this would be a replacement of one of our mowers. And there are certain areas in the county with mowing that really do need the front mount. So we went side mount last year. We're proposing a new front mount this year, and that could be something we explore in future years about what percentage of each we need. But for this year, we're confident that the front mount would be appropriate. And then we also propose an attachment for one of our existing mowers, a rotary boom. It helps, it's sweeping and maintaining the athletic fields, I believe it's for. Yeah, it's for the dirt in fields and things to help better maintain those. And those are the two capital items for grounds maintenance.
We going back to Bayside now?
Yep, with that said, I will step aside and invite Jill to come up for open space, LPPI,
16.
and Bayside.
Oh, and Bayside.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Bayside. For Bayside Landing, you did see in FY25, if you look, you're probably wondering why the salary projection is only $9,948 compared to what we budgeted and compared to FY26, what we're budgeting. So due to having low lifeguards, we had to be very, very creative in making sure that Bayside was also covered. So what we did was we put one lifeguard down there, and then we put down a pool attendant. A pool attendant is someone does not have to be a certified lifeguard, but they are there to assist and help the lifeguards. So with safety concerns, with any rescues that may happen, any emergencies, they can clear the deck if the lifeguard needs to go to the bathroom, so that we make sure no one's being unsafe in the water. So that's why the projection is so low. So what I am proposing this year is that if we can take one of the lifeguards positions down there and change it to a pool attendant. And that will suffice us as far as being able to, hopefully, if we get enough lifeguards, to be able to maintain the pool down there and keep it open. As far as operational building and ground supplies, we were all in $812 under. And then the only capital budget that I'm asking for down there is pool furniture that we have on a rotating schedule that we ask for every other year. Did you want to talk on anything on the budget project that's going down there? We're good currently? Okay. Any questions on Bayside?
POS.
Program open space?
Yep.
Okay, so now we're gonna jump ahead.
Or maybe I
Yep.
tell you, I find it just easy to budget up there.
Well, this one's 19, program open space.
Yeah, right.
All right, yeah, Project Open Space. First, I have to give a lot of credit to Carrie over here. She has done a wonderful job with getting our program Open Space projects completed that have been on the back burner for a while, and the same thing with our LPPI projects.
Guess you won't have much to do for the next 4 years.
Right, after she gets all this done.
The state's gonna take off, put, that's zero for the next 4 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Is that still what's in the budget?
It's
As
still,
of today, do we know?
it's.
I mean, is it still not in the budget as of today?
So I think we included in the budget, but there's been no official word that they're eliminating POS till 2027, so. Yes,
We're
but you're
waiting.
right, that could be coming. So POS, the projects that we continue to have, that she's continuing to work on is our Betterton Beach replace the boardwalk. It is my understanding this will be completed in the fall. We have the Still Pond Park, which we need to do a site plan and services. I'm currently working on that one. Wharton Park, the ball field and enhancements, they are currently up and under and going on as we speak. Same thing with Toll Park, we're currently working on those. The Toll Park restroom and pavilion design, I think that's kind of on hold for right now. And then the one we're asking for this year for FY '26 is the Eadsville Park to update the playground. It's over 20 years old at this point. So Greg went out and inspected it, and we feel like that it should be replaced for safety concerns. Any question on POS? And yes, POS will to be determined.
It's a lot to be determined.
Did I miss one?
No, I don't think.
And that's
they're
always
listed.
90-10,
Should've
isn't it,
been.
Jill?
90-10, that is correct. Oh, and there's also Wharton Park, we are doing the basketball courts, and they are currently.
Oh, but they'll be complete. They'll be complete by
They'll be
this.
complete by this
fiscal-
year,
Yeah,
yes.
so
That's why.
that's why they're not listed for next year.
As far as LPPI funding, this is 100% funding. The county doesn't pay anything for these funds. So we're trying to get all the projects that we had on the 21, 22, and we're trying to complete those and get those done. Right now, we're working on the restroom building and the dugouts and the bleachers. And in that is also replacing the boardwalk and the benches at Betterton Beach. So the Wharton Park, the first one, is being completed now.
Yes.
And we should be done within, hopefully, the next week or two, because baseball season is upon us.
Yeah, there was a
and softball
delay.
season. So, yeah, there's a little bit of delay. So we've been able, the coaches are very understanding. They're excited that this is coming for them. But we've kind of made other accommodations for them, just letting them use the outfield instead of the infield if we felt like it was unsafe. So they've been working wonderful with us. So we appreciate that. But once these projects are completed, this funding is no longer in existence. So we will no longer have LPPI funding.
This was the funding that we got in back-to-back years, in back-to-back 2 consecutive years, $1 million. But it was twice and done. I can't say once and
Yeah,
done.
twice and done.
If I remember, we got $1 million and that was and then we divided it up between us and the municipalities.
Correct. That is 100% correct.
Yeah.
And same with the following year.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So the replacement of the boardwalk at Betterton Beach, and then you had it in the project open space as well
It was broken
for
apart.
10%.
Right, it was broken apart into a couple different pieces.
Into 2 different grants.
Yes, correct. That is correct. I'm done with you.
Okay.
Unless you have anything.
Nope, that's everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As far as Parks and Recreation budget, I try to do the best I could with keeping everything at the minimum, and only asking for what is absolutely necessary. So you can see in our operations, we're pretty much staying right on target from year after year, which is really wonderful for us because we also are trying to promote more programs, do more things. So we just started co-ed soccer, indoor soccer this year. Next year, we're looking at going with Queen Anne's for the indoor soccer league, so making it kind of a bigger league. And then we're also having the idea thrown around of starting a flag football. So we're always starting to try to new programs and getting children involved, adults, children of all ages, involved with the community center. This year for operations, of course, for Winter Mako, for a conference. This is for Winter Mako and MRPA. MRPA is Maryland Recreational Professionals. So we usually send 4 of us to the conference, which is myself, my deputy director, and 2 program coordinators. This year, what I've done is I've expanded it to all of our staff to be able to go at least one day. They were all very thankful because they don't really get that opportunity to be able to go to many trainings. So this year, I've expanded it so everyone can kind of have an opportunity to be able to go. Instructor line, we did go down in instructors. Reason why instructors are like your fitness instructors. For a couple years now, we have really tried to promote our fitness programs, which we really have not really found a fitness instructor. Not saying we're not going to keep trying, but I did decrease that in our budget because over the last couple years, we have kind of fell short on that. So if you know any fitness instructors, send them our way.
You're looking up here, asking the 3 of us.
Yes.
I know an awful lot about it. I'm not very good at it.
For capital budgets, the 4 things that I'm asking for is for new park rule signage for Eadsville, Toll, Turner's Creek, and Morton. The old red signs that were out there, they've kind of had their days. A few of them we have already removed from the sites for safety reasons. So requesting for us to be able to purchase new park rule signage. Millington Pool and the Community Center Pool, we need to replace the main drains. The main drains expire every 5 to 7 years. These main drains at Millington and the Community Center is coming up on the 7th year, so.
When you say replace them, this is just, I just don't know what I know where there's a drain.
At the bottom.
At the bottom, but what do you replace? Because it looked like to me that would be one heck of a job if you're going down into the pipes and stuff.
No.
It's just the drain
You're just
itself?
the drain itself,
I
yes.
got you.
Yeah.
So I have a question. And I just want to know why the Millington pool, which is a much smaller pool, you have $1,600 to replace the drain versus the community pool, which is only $3,000.
So with the community pool, there is more drains, but they're smaller drains. So they cost a little less to replace them, where the main drains at Millington Pool, there's only 3 of them there, but they're bigger drains. And then community center, we're always looking to replace equipment. We did one exercise equipment that is down right now. I'm just asking for us to be able to replace it. It has met its life course. So it would be cheaper to actually buy a new piece of equipment than it would be to replace the parts on that one. We're only talking about a $2,000 difference, so I feel like it's cheaper in the long run to go ahead and purchase a new one than to go ahead and fix that one.
Before, this is just, I'm off the subject just a tad, but while you and Dan and all others are here, what do, East Neck Island, I mean, we take care of the road that goes all the way down to the public landing, if I'm not mistaken. Goes to Bogles.
Yes.
And it used to be that the National Wildlife, I guess, used to give us a check for helping to maintain that road from the bridge down to Bogles. I don't know whether that's just a question, I don't know whether, they used to come in here and present it years ago for their share, or for helping us pay for that. I just thought about that the other day, because a conversation come up. And then we go down, Dan, don't we, maybe this would be we mow the grass down to what they call Ingleside, down on the island.
Yes, I believe so, yes.
We do anything else down on the island that you know of?
Maintain Bogles Pier.
Yeah, I know the public,
Yes.
that public landing, absolutely, and all of Bogles, the parking lot
Right.
and the road out to the bridge, but I was wondering, I know about that, and I know about the fact that we cut the grass at Ingleside. And do you know of anything else we do down there?
I'm not aware of anything else, I can confirm that.
Okay. The conversation come up, I think we'll be getting a visitor sometime in the next month or so from the Friends of East Neck Island with these, doing away with the rangers paying for the upkeep of these these parks all over the country. And that East Neck Island is one of them, a very small one compared to these. But I was just curious, they talked to me the other day about what we do down there, and I told them that much. And I couldn't remember whether it was anything else or not. But I'm sorry.
No,
didn't
you're
mean to
good, you're
interrupt.
good, absolutely.
And Ronnie, we get $28,000 as a federal boon payment for Eastern Neck Island.
We still get
We
it.
still get it.
There you go.
Yeah, it comes into the general fund, so it hasn't changed in years. It's $28,434. So we haven't seen a freeze on that money yet.
How about that?
So we'll see if we get it next year.
That's all I have unless you guys have any questions.
I don't have a question, but I got a comment at the park. I've been taking one of my grandchildren to school in the mornings. I see a lot of activity at the park, which you're referring to. And it always amazes me how well, I think that's a beautiful park. Everybody that's involved in it does a great job. Plus the community center. Pat, do we stop paying on that this year?
I think it's 28.
28?
I think so. I
But
can
that
double.
was, what, 15 years? Or that, or 20?
It was either 15 or 20. I can check exactly for you, but I'm pretty sure it's FY '28 that it
You
falls
walk
out.
into the place, it looks like brand new.
I think it was 20.
But you walk into it today and that means it's about 17 years old or so, and it looks like it's brand new. So those of you that oversee it and take care of it, you do a great job.
Thank you.
Is that it?
All good?
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you,
Take
Jill.
care.
And I think next we have Scott.
How we doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I think we will be relatively brief compared to past years. Okay.
It doesn't matter, Scott. Most of the time, what you talk about, we don't understand what you're saying.
So I can just ask for anything?
Really don't. You're talking about all that crazy stuff. We just kind of sleep through your,
Sleep through it? Sounds like dinner table.
look, I have to go worry April to keep my phone operating. You know, we're in bad shape.
All right, well, in the past 24 hours, our budget changed quite a bit in one line item. So do you just want to
Yep, you
jump
want to
into
just go
that?
to those? Sure.
Yeah, so it's in a good way. The technical services that I want to point out, it's approximately $60,000. This is our fiber, so what we build, what we own. You're aware that there's been other jurisdictions that have experienced some rather substantial cyber attacks across the bridge, right? So when we study how these things happen, there's virtual segmentation. There's ways we can do things sort of behind the scenes to make certain data not mix, so to speak. But then there's also physical, right? So we call it air gapping, where you think about it as if you had red and green cars going through the same tunnel, right? But then, so in theory, they could see each other, or something could happen. But then you have two tunnels where you put the red in one and the green in the other. Well, that's kind of what we're looking to do with this.
You
is that-
catch all this, John.
I got the red and green car.
Green card. I'm thinking we're staying at a traffic light.
Okay, I'll dial it back. So what this is for physical infrastructure upgrades to allow us to enhance our security. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, all right.
Not perfect, but it's better.
All right. So it's good that we have the infrastructure that in place. This is not something that we have to construct, because the construction is a ton of money, right? This is something we own, so this is just the labor and the material needed to manipulate the structure to do what we need to physically separate things, if that makes sense. That ties into the second one, data lines. A substantial portion of this is going to be that virtual side I was talking about, the stuff you don't see that we do at the keyboards. There's some equipment, well, it ties in with the equipment, but in essence, what it does is this whole thing is about enhancing our cybersecurity posture. It's all about making our security more robust for approximately $80,000, so hopefully we can mitigate the possibility of a multi-million-dollar incident. That's what it's about, enhancing security. Okay. The other line items are going down. As you go to the bottom for capital expenditures, it looks like a big one there. The $150,000, as you know, that's something we put aside every year, $30,000, so it's not all coming out of this budget. Correct, Pat?
That is correct.
It's set aside. So it would be $30,000 for this year, technically, right? But the other money's already there and allocated. Okay, but that's how it reads on this. And then the battery upgrades, it's just the wear and tear. The batteries run out for our facility UPS that we have, what is it, here and Public Works, or?
It's just for here.
Just for here? Okay, just for here. That's the bad news. The good news is the next page, I would like to point out grant highlights. This was something new that came up over the past, it's been almost 2 years now, isn't it? Year and a half?
Started in May.
Ain't that long, that's it? Wow.
We applied in May.
Okay, so there's been a couple rounds of cybersecurity grants that come through FEMA, then MEMA, and then the rural jurisdictions have a chance to take a shot at getting some money. The first round, you can see it wasn't very much. We got about $25,000, but that was for 4 different asks. Now, this is something we would have otherwise come to you for in this budget year. When we submitted our request, there was 38 applications, 19 got approved. Kent County got all 4 of ours in that top 19. Now, I think our highest was like 7th, but what we did was when the next grant round came around, we studied who beat us, and we tried to figure out how we could do it better. And then you can see we got $136,000, and out of 48 applications, I think it was, Kent County came in 1, 2, 3, and 4. So ours were ranked the top 4 out of 48, and we got the full amount. So we were able to bring in $161,000 in funding to increase our cybersecurity that otherwise we would have had to have come to you for. Now, that being said, that larger amount is frozen. So, it is frozen, but we expect it to be released, and there's another round coming that we also expect to apply for and get a substantial amount of money as well. And that's what we've got.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
No questions?
Yeah, you can go up there and make sure there's green lines and the green card keeps on rolling.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next we have Bill.
Good afternoon. I was here earlier, but no one else was, so. I'm joking about the time. So the proposal for this year's budget for planning, housing, and zoning is basically a maintenance budget with a few exceptions. So the overall request is about 10% higher. There's 3 pieces to that. One part is not really negotiable. We have a 3-year GIS contract that was approved, and that contract has different amounts for each year, so it goes up and down. So this year is an up year. We don't really have control over that. That's about $9,000. We're putting in a request for increased legal costs. We've had a lot of issues with the solar projects coming in and legal representations required. Planning and zoning, the way billing is set up is different, so we're sort of covering those issues that are within our area specifically for legal services. So we're estimating about $6,700 for the year. And then I'm making a request. You all were generous enough to approve under contingency funds this year, 1 semester for an intern. I'd like to request the fall and spring semesters of next year. That intern is from Washington College. They do GIS services, and we're trying to do projects for the town, so it's a cooperative idea. This time, we're working with the town of Rock Hall to map all of their fire hydrants. And not only are we mapping them for our GIS system, but we're also doing double duty. They have a brand-new tablet and a new infrastructure tracking system, so we're also entering it on their system so they get it as well. So that's the request. There's a small amount for other matters. Prices go up a little bit. We're looking for some training for folks, so that's about $700. So that would be the operating expense. Under capital, we usually never ask for capital. Just like finance, we're looking at some of our spaces, and there's some one-time money, I understand, so we're going through the same process of looking at furniture for the planning area. Some of that furniture, I believe, is older than me. A lot of it is inherited. Other departments would redo their furniture, and then we pick out the best stuff, and so a lot of that is really quite old. It seems like it's a good time to ask and to do that, and we're working with the same consultants. We had one, finance had one, we swapped, so we're trying to come up with some cubicles similar to the ones in your office for the planners in that work area. So that would be for 4 employees and the one, sort of the big back room in planning. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I hope you'll.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're glad to see you.
It's great to be seen. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Rosie had to step out to take a call, so if we could skip her and come back, that would be fantastic. So I believe Jamie is next.
Okay. Theirs is relatively easy. We just had I guess we'll just go to the highlights tab, because it's kind of, yeah. We just took out some things, the MAP Pro registration and some IEDC webinars, so we just had a decrease in the operating, small decrease. One thing I did want to point out is the Kent County Visitor Center in Chestertown. The town of Chestertown, along with Main Street Chestertown, they're assessing the future operations of the visitor center. So we are, our team is going to partner with them to staff on Tuesdays from 10 to 3. We'll take turns between April and December. They're going to track data such as, who comes in, what they're coming in for, where they're coming from, and then Sonny Huntsberger, who is the Main Street Director, will make a recommendation to the town as to what they do to that building. So we're going to help them out with that between April and December. So we're also working on the destination marketing initiatives in collaboration with a couple of stakeholders. So that's our tourism marketing. The county commissioners give allotment each year to advertise Kent County as a destination, but we also leverage that with a state grant. So we're just looking at the different vehicles in which we advertise and see if we need to make some changes there. So we'll be going over that with that small group. So not a whole lot there. No capital projects, anything, so. Any questions? Okay, next one's probably even easier. So this is the hot desk budget, and hopefully you guys got a little bit of a lengthier memo from me as well. But in regards to the hot desk, you can see that it's basically a wash with revenues and expenditures. Not a lot going on there. And as a matter of fact, just since I met with Pat and Shelley, we had somebody else rent an office as well as sign up for a membership. So I can work with Pat to redo those numbers. So the number will be going down as to what the county has to subsidize that, the hot desk for. So my memo basically said I'm recommending discontinuing the operations of the Chestertown Hot Desk as of next year. So we'll fund it through this year. And the reasons for that is the service is no longer filling the intended purpose, which was for small businesses to start up and then eventually need space out in the greater community. It served lots of good purposes. People that didn't have internet, that have now internet now. Some people just want to get away from home, kids, dogs, and, just to have a quiet place to work. But it is very time-consuming for staff to manage it. And we think the service would be more effectively managed by a private entity or a nonprofit. So working with a couple of private individuals as well as Washington College with their Innovation Center to see if they could possibly either take that over or we discontinue that use and Washington College could use the furniture and equipment at their Innovation Center. So unless there's any questions, that is all I have.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you.
I guess, I still don't see Rosie, so.
Rosie is not back yet,
Okay,
so
so
let's
Jim?
go to Jim.
Good afternoon. Good day. Could you mind? I'll pass these along.
Oh, sure.
Let's see, where are we? Okay. Just a couple of items. The key items that I think you're going to find really under operating. The first two items, the compensation project and employee files and scanning. Taking the scanning one first for a second. Right now, the majority of the personnel files are hard copy. They're not terribly safe, they're not terribly secure. One oops, a sprinkler goes off and we lose all that hard copy. We've been in the process since, for about a year and a half since we got an HRIS system to scan employee records into that system. So as new people come on, their records go that way, and as we have changes with current staff. But we still have a really large contingent of files that we want to scan and index into our HRIS. It'll be safer, it'll be more secure. I actually had a conversation with Scott about it recently, and it makes a lot of sense to be able to do that. Considering the dollar amount for it and the fact that we're kind of constantly at risk of losing records or losing pieces of the records, it would actually be something, if the funds were available, I'd recommend trying to do sooner rather than later, now rather than thinking about it as an FY26 item. The compensation project, when I first got here, we talked a bit about.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
The scanning of the files. So is this 5,000 request for a software program, or is it for?
It's a company that will scan all of our records into.
To actually have someone come in and do it?
Yes. Yeah. We looked into possibly trying to do it internally, but we really don't have high-speed scanners that would enable us to get it done quickly. Plus, the company that we're looking at will also prepare the records to be scanned, meaning taking out the hundreds of staples that are in every record, and that would just be time-consuming for us. This will get it done much quicker and at a much better price.
And how's it going to be stored?
It'll be stored it'll all be digital, so it'll be in our HRIS, and it'll be available. I guess Scott would be a better way to describe it, but it's like a cloud storage, so it's always accessible to us, and it's protected that way.
So Scott's still back there, so I mean, there's not a storage issue in putting all this stuff in there.
No, we can't.
Other questions about the
No,
scale?
no, I think that's a great idea to be doing that. It should have probably been done a long time ago, so.
Well, we didn't quite have all the technology in place a long time ago. Once we got the HRIS, it was the next evolution to do something like this. The compensation project, when I first got here, we talked about doing that because it hadn't been done in a couple of decades. We've made some strides internally in terms of setting up some of the reviews of positions, setting up and looking at salaries of people as we hire them, and gauging some of that information against some salary survey information. We're also in the process right now of getting updated job descriptions from all departments for all positions. So we've taken our what was initially a couple of years ago a large project, and we've piecemealed it, but we're to the point now where it would be the right time to bring in an outside consultant to take us to that next step, to take the information we've already gathered, their access to survey data, and then review all of our positions, possibly regrade positions, restructure all that. It keeps us in a competitive position with our competitors, and the reason I recommend doing it that way as opposed to continuing to do this part of it internally is that it keeps HR at arm's length from that part of the process, since we're part of the group that would be looked at, as with all the other employees. And the memo that I gave you goes into a bit more detail about both of those. That's also one that I would say if the money were available, I would recommend moving forward on that quicker too, particularly as we close in on getting to FY26. It would establish us, it would give us the right establishment for our grades and ranges going into the next fiscal year. It just ties nicely together that way. Questions about that idea? When it was done originally, it was about 2 decades ago, and it was about $39,000, as best I can find from the time. To do the full scope of the project, which I came and talked to you all about within my first few months here, so a couple of years ago, it would have been a full scope project of about $100,000. We can get it done for about $35,000 now, using a vendor that the county already has, already works closely with, the Bolton Group. They have a compensation arm of Bolton that we work closely with.
But aren't most of the decisions about compensation basically centers around what we can afford from year to year? Or is that not what we're looking at? That not what you're talking about?
No, not exactly. Yeah, I mean, certainly the salary increases.
It is exactly.
The salary increases.
If we can't afford it, we can't
Oh,
do
no,
it,
no,
Jim. It's
yeah.
that simple.
Oh, salary increases, certainly, like, are we going to do like last year, there was a 6% increase overall. This is more about internally how we match up our positions inside this organization and what we need to do to attract and retain staff going forward. You heard a lot of conversation earlier today about how important it is to retain staff because keeping people in the organizations is much cheaper than continuing to lose people and to recruit to replace them. This is another way this is a piece of that whole pie. Certainly, we would still live within the confines of what we can do, but it enables us to ensure that as we're looking at candidates and looking at attracting the best candidates, we know where they fit in the marketplace, particularly in the 4 or 5 counties that are our major competitors.
I think there's some worthwhile information you would gain doing some of that, but I'll tell you what the real problem is with that I see that we face as far as being competitive. When I first got in this job, started with this job, at least for the first 8 years, I had a good friend that was in Queen Anne's County, and George O'Donnell, he was a commissioner there. and him and I spoke, we talked, we were best friends. And we used to compare notes all the time about Queen Anne's and Kent. If ours, back then, if our budget was $30 million, his was 61, just about twice what we are. Today, that would be 3.5 times what we are. Due to the obvious is people found out they could work on the western shore and make more money and then move across the bridge, and they were close enough to commute back and forth. And they had an explosion of housing. And I'll tell you, I really believe you can do all the surveys you want, but it's not gonna help us compete with Queen Anne's County, because that's gonna be a problem. And when you see it in salaries, you see it in benefits, you see it all, I just think that's the thing that plagues us, and there's no real cure for it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Part of it is not just the competition with Queen Anne's or Cecil or, pick the player, but part of it is how we're doing internally as well. And when we look at positions and we look at the structure.
Now, I understand, I
positions
don't
and
want to mean
grades.
to cut you off, but I understand what you mean there. You're
Oh, okay.
comparing people within the system, how they should be treated, that's.
And that helps the growth internally. That helps us retain people that way as well. So, there's always a bigger player out there somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Ours just happens to be right next door to us,
yeah,
which makes it even tougher.
it does.
And the only concern I would have, Jim, is, I'm not saying that it's a bad idea. I think, our employees, our staff, they all need to be paid efficiently with what's going on in the market. The problem that we have this year is we don't even know what we're going to be able to do for our employees at this point. And if you have a study done and you pay $35,000 to have it done, maybe in a year or two when we can try to take a closer look at it, it's going to be outdated. It's not going to be current. I mean, it'll give us some baseline, but it's not going to be up to date. And so
No,
I'm not trying to knock it in the head because we need to talk about it, but I think this year might be a bad time to try to do a study that potentially could be outdated if in fact we don't have the money to fund it anyhow.
well, only a piece of it is actually the study. And we have some of that data.
Yeah, but is
And-
it worth
and
$35,000?
It is to take that information and then translate that into a whole grade and salary range structure that's more current than the one that was originally put in place 2 decades ago.
I hear you, but we don't have the money to even put it in place. At this point in time, we don't think we have the money.
Well,
Well,
I would,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
what I'm hearing is basically abandon what we have as a grade scale and start over, because we have found inherent problems with our grade scale. So even if we're not implementing raises, we could come up with a better framework for the employees, how to categorize them.
It's worth talking about a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, and Shelley's right. It is creating the structure. When it was done a couple of decades ago, that was the whole idea, was to establish that kind of structure. Most structures are looked at every couple of years to make sure that you've kept up with what's going on in the market. It happened, 2 decades ago when everybody figured out that the grade for an HR person, that prior to that there had been the same grade for somebody who was a land administrator in IT. It worked out okay a couple decades ago. And then the IT world exploded. And where I came from, we ended up creating a whole separate structure for IT because the grades and the salary range attached to it didn't make any sense anymore. So most organizations have gone down that path to make sure that they're competitive, not only inside their organization with their general competitors, but also with the types of positions. because some positions grow exponentially, other ones are pretty stable time over time. In this organization, I would probably make the analogy to how the plant operator position has grown over time. A couple decades ago, the grades weren't that dramatically different. Now we recognize, and you all have recognized, how significantly different it is for plant operators and how much in demand they've become in anybody's marketplace. We're seeing the same thing with paramedics, and you heard Pete talking earlier today about trying to develop a structure to develop their own from EMT to paramedic by using training and money to facilitate doing that, and not just trying to recruit externally for paramedics, because we can't compete. Partly because of the money, but partly because they're in so much demand that everybody's clamoring for them, and everybody will, ratchet up their price a little bit to get there. We're just trying to develop the framework that gives us a more competitive position than we might be in today or might have been in the last couple of years. But yes, there's certainly a lot of conversation surrounding something like
And I
this.
almost think there's room, in my opinion, coming from where I came from, that with the public safety folks, the grade or the step and grade system works pretty well, because they have built-in percentages over the course of 10 years or whatever. And maybe in the governmental part, it may be a little bit better to just have a range
I don't know.
of depending on,
I think probably grade and step is the way to go, period. We have a lot of grade fuzzy in the way we do it.
even though when you do the grade and step, you take someone's experience and you evaluate, and then you set the salary at that point. I think it works well with, it doesn't work so well with public safety, I can tell you,
I get that,
in my opinion.
right.
Only because the public safety folks look at where they're going to be. This is some of the paramedics and the deputies and correctional officers and so forth. They want to know when they're working exactly where they're going to be and how they're going to progress on the scale if they get promoted. And they want to be able to see it.
I
As
think-
opposed to just
I-
saying, okay, you're going to get 5% on your
Right.
current salary when you get promoted.
I think a lot of government workers, just across the board, expect it. I mean, the federal government does it, most of our counterparts do it, a lot of our municipalities do it. So it's a struggle that we don't do it, because people can't plan out, just like what you're saying. They don't know what the future holds.
One of the things you find, and my brother was in public sector, was in the federal government for 40 years. And the one thing, a grade and step system like that, because SSA had that. You were a grade 2, you were a step 1, the next year became a 2, the next year became a 3 and a 4. And you always knew what that was going to look like. What it didn't give the employer, SSA, what it didn't give them the ability to do was recognize differences in performance. So if I was a great performer and I was a grade 2, step 1, and Shelley was a grade 2, step 1, doing the same job as me, and she was doing it exponentially better than me, the next year she went to a grade 2, step 2, so did I. It didn't give our boss the chance to say, she did a hell of a lot better job than you did, and I want to find some way to reward that. That's the drawback of a pure grade and step system. In more of a performance-based system, which lends itself easier to a salary range type of structure, you have a little more latitude to do that kind of thing. It requires a hell of a lot more, a heck of a lot more of management to manage that kind of a structure and to manage performance that way. But in the end, your best performers get rewarded the best, and that's how you promote retention.
Well, look, we're not gonna
but I
solve.
do-
Oh, yeah, I know. I didn't mean for that to happen. That's why I
do
put
wanna
together a
have-
note to talk about it, but,
Because
yeah, I
you brought it
didn't mean
up,
for this to go that far.
Because you brought those up, I think that we should, I don't know that our employees are being, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know when I've asked for some documentation to support whatever efforts there are, there's no documentation available. Evaluations,
Oh,
supervisory notes. You know, I mean, there's nothing sometimes to justification, or for justification for a good thing to happen, or justification for a bad thing to happen sometimes, depending on the situation. So I would encourage our department heads to evaluate our folks at least once a year. I know, well, the sheriff's office, for instance, for 2 years while they're on probation, because the deputy's probation is for 2 years, not one. But they evaluate quarterly throughout that 2-year period. And it gives us a chance to either correct whatever the issues are and to properly document it. So if you do have to act on something one way or the other, something good, something bad, you've got some documentation. But without those evaluations or the supervisory notes,
Yeah.
it
No, you're
makes
right, and not
it makes it
every-
difficult.
And not all departments do annual evaluations, and the evaluation tool hasn't been looked at in quite a while either. That's simply another piece of a big picture of, you know, what does HR do for the organization, and how do we help make it better?
And you also take out, when you have those evaluations and the employee agrees to them, you also take out, and not that this happens, but somebody might like somebody better than another person. It shouldn't be that way, but I know it happens from time to time. So it's just a fair, legitimate, detailed process that
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we should require that, the evaluations, at least annually.
Yeah, I agree. I think looking at our evaluation tool is something that should be happening. We've taken a cursory look at it up until now, but we haven't taken a deep dive into it so far, but certainly something that's been on my mind and that Shelley and I have talked about in other conversations. Anyway, didn't mean to go so far afield, because there's one other item to talk about. Employee relations, and you have a lengthy memo to talk about this, but the short form of it is that, as you know, when I came to you a couple of months ago after the December dinner, and we got the survey results back, we learned a good deal from the staff on what they like, what they don't like. And I know this board particularly is keen on making sure that the staff, understands that you recognize and appreciate what they do for the county. So what we've come up with is four different ideas of how to give you that opportunity for the staff to see their recognition and to separate out like an annual dinner from service awards, because we heard very clearly that the staff don't always feel that that's a piece of the dinner, but their service isn't really being recognized in and of itself. So we've come up with some ideas on how to approach that. Summer picnic, which got mentioned, and concurrently, Jill was looking at the same idea, and she and I have had a conversation about how we could put together an event like that would be a very family event for all the employees. So there's some good stuff in there. At this point, what I would say is we've put together a preliminary budget on how to parse some of these things out, do a little differently. That coupled with the memo, which goes into greater detail, will give you a sense of where we're suggesting that we head.
Well, give us a chance to read your memo and have a discussion.
Is that the current number that has been budgeted in previous years?
No, this would be
No.
the increase.
This
if
is the increase.
all of those items were moved forward. But we can get into a much more detailed conversation at some point about which pieces of that you like.
Yeah, and the memo breaks it out section by section, to give you a flavor, with the exception of a service awards luncheon. I wasn't able to price something like that out. I was able to price out a piece of it, but not the total cost. But that gives you a sense of incrementally where we would go if we adopted all of these ideas.
Very good.
So Jim is going to stay here and talk just a few minutes about insurance, and then we can loop back to Rosie, who has come in, and finish up with Sandra.
Insurances, tough conversation. To be honest, we didn't have a great year. Couple of factors that came into play. We had, over the past 18 months, our price, the premiums we pay for health insurance are looked at, kind of a look back of 18 months and what's been our experience. How have we done? Have we been around what the actuaries thought it would cost for us to have our coverages? And we didn't do very well. We had a couple of catastrophic claims over the last 18 months. We ran about 8% higher than what was expected. Actuaries will look at it and say, if their prediction, if you're at 100%, you're really kind of what was expected, so all you're going to get hit with is just kind of the normal increase of health insurance as it goes up every year. We were at 108% instead of 100. We also have a thing called stop loss, which helps mitigate some of our larger expenses for larger claims. And this past year, for every dollar that we would have contributed to that stop loss, our carrier paid out $2. So we were 200%, we were way beyond that. Prescription costs have gone up just across the board, as anybody here who's, been to Walgreens or CVS or any place knows. We've also found that one of the things that gets looked at is how are our expenses in age brackets. And a couple of the age brackets far exceed others, which isn't really terribly unexpected. Frankly, when you get a little bit older, the cost gets a little higher. In general, all this resulted in about a 14% increase in premiums, which translates into a little bit more than that when you start looking at the different categories that we use, individual or employee plus spouse or employee plus a child or family coverages. So, yeah, we had a bad year. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. There was some mitigation through our carriers in terms of what we're capped at. And we still actually get some monies back on some of the plans and how things are calculated. But that's being built into the FY26 budget as well.
So we're looking at a 12%.
No, I apologize. What you're looking at is the non-health insurance budget, Jim. This was.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking up at your category.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were going to talk about the health insurance, so I'm sorry. The slide that I'm showing is the non-health insurance. So this is your general liability, your auto.
Public officials.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
public official costs,
So I don't know if
auto insurance, liability coverages for that kind of
What
stuff.
is our health insurance supposed to go up this year?
That's what Jim was speaking to, but, yeah.
So it's about 14%.
It looks like it's going to be that, and this,
One time I thought I read 17% somewhere.
That was the first estimate.
yeah,
Okay.
we were looking at maxed out at 17. We think it's going to, when you put all the categories together, it's going to average out to 14.8. But on an individual group, it could be as much as 16 per category. The reason why we only had estimates on the liability programs is we still don't have numbers back from the actuaries yet on exactly. What Pat was showing, the 12 to 15 is what I was told last week to use as our projections for now. They haven't given us final numbers on that yet.
More to follow.
So that's,
Sort of
that
auto.
77,572 is the 90% that the county pays.
This is not health
No,
insurance.
this isn't health
I'm sorry,
insurance.
this slide,
That's
this is this is the auto
You're not
liability.
talking about health insurance at all.
No, this is not.
On that slide, no, I'm
This is
not.
for
He
like
is.
legit and,
You're right, I thought he was gonna talk, yeah, we
Yeah,
have,
and I'm sorry, Pat and I got our wires crossed,
okay.
because I immediately went to health insurance as the first thing in my head. That one's liability, auto insurance, if there was any increases in bond and coverages and that kind of stuff, they've projected 12 to 15 on that item.
So
Well, we don't
there
have-
are a couple of factors there. One, with property, clearly there are way many more natural disasters these days. Everybody knows if you are a homeowner that property insurance rates are going up.
We're all going up.
I'm gonna tell you, that 14% sounds like a high number, but years ago, it was in the 20s almost every year. That's when we went with legit, or when they started that. In 5 years, one time, we doubled our premium.
Yep, I went through those years as well previously, yeah.
With auto, if you've gotten into a fender bender in the past 10 years, you know, you can't even see the damage and you're 10 grand in, where it used to be you could really bang up your car, but with all the electronic sensors, et cetera. So every little claim just adds up.
Yep,
But regarding health insurance, Pat,
so the health
I
insurance.
know we haven't had a conversation about that really at this point, but,
So on the first slides on the overview,
okay.
again, that was based on the original 17% estimate. We were looking at about 577,000. So I need to, based on our current population, but I need to back those numbers off now, because I use 17%, and now we have numbers that are slightly lower at 14 or 15, I think, somewhere in there. So.
we think the aggregate of all the categories, the 4 different categories that we have for employee coverages, and with the county contributing anywhere from 80 to 90% of that, it's going to be, I think we came out with like 14.8 as the aggregate average number. So it's a little better than the first slide that you saw. It's still it's still a tough number.
Yeah. By the time we meet next week, I'll have it rolled in. We just didn't have time to get it in for today's
I'm hoping
presentation.
that we can keep the 90-10 in place for our employees.
Well, don't forget, that's for individual. If you are employee
Yeah, well,
spouse,
it's a
it's
little
85-15,
Yeah.
and family, it's
Family is
80-20.
80/20, yeah. Yeah,
But we
yes.
don't know at this point until we have a more detailed conversation.
Right, and we can bring that information forward next week.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, we're going to bounce back to Rosie, which if you're following in the binder is 24.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rose.
Hi. Our budget, we're looking at a slight decrease in our base funding from the state. That actually is due to, they've put a 30% cap on our admin, so like for my salary. And so we've put the difference in the county side. But I am requesting a waiver to let them go above 30%, and I'm pretty confident they'll give it to me. So that's just, it's pretty much flat funded in my mind. So our revenue are the community partnership agreement. Last year, we had supplemental funding that was added in June or July, and this year that did not go through. Our local care team request is just based on our need, so the regular salary increases we're able to put in there, and they're able to continue to increase our award based on our need. We've been requesting small grants to support what we call the Brighter Day Fund. That's the local care team is able to provide small grants to families with specific needs, whether it's a cap and gown or a summer camp or a special, like, medical request, they've been able to support families in that way. And so we've been able to get small grants from the health department, churches, and the Rotary Club. And that down there is the salary due to the cap on operating funds for the county revenue increase. But that could potentially go back, as long as they give me permission. For expenditure, we are planning on reducing some of our operating costs. Last year, we were using the community partnership agreement to do some of our planning and engagement work. The canvassing, door knocking campaign, that was in our community partnership agreement. This year, we are planning on putting any activities like that in the Enough Local Management Board Capacity Grant, which is an additional grant that is not included in these numbers because it's 100% state funded. There's no match